Super BS.
Well, it's I, lovable baby boy Brank, leader of Super BS, a podcast about video games mostly. Normally we don't have leaders on a two-person show, but one of us has become Lord of the Elden Tree. I am now the Shadow of the Erd Tree, the Elden Ring god himself. It is me, Brank. And I'm joined by somebody who can't even lick Mesmer's flames. Who am I joined by?
I'm the supreme leader, Jank, not of the Elden Tree, but of just a regular tree. Definitely taller than the Elder Tree, though, for sure.
Elden Ring. Oh, Elden Ring. You couldn't even stand in the shadow of the Erd Tree, okay? And I am the Erd Tree.
Oh.
So that is what happened at the end. I have beaten the last boss, somebody that the internet says is the most impossible boss ever in the history of video games. Guess what? Guess who's the lovable baby boy Brank who killed Mesmer? Second try. Two-time Mesmer.
So how?
Guess who?
How long did it take you to do this?
To kill the last boss or to finish all of Shadow of the Erd Tree?
To finish Shadow of the Erd Tree.
It was probably like 20 hours.
Oh,
I'm a pro video game. I
it's
no
not too
scope
bad.
bosses nonstop. I mean, I was just
360
no
no-scope
scope faith tax. It's great. Are you ever gonna play that game?
Yes, I keep saying yes. I'm going to keep saying yes until one day it happens. Whether it's next week or 10 years from now, who knows?
I hope we get our Patreon followers on you and get a Patreon pledge that forces you to finish it. And if you don't, your firstborn child will have to be offered up as sacrifice, okay? That is normally how that's normally how Patreon pledges work, right? It's a deal between you and the Patreon members that you have to do this. Real quick, just because we know you're a fake gamer, have you ever beaten any long games ever? Like, what's the longest, most difficult game you've ever played? We gotta know.
The longest, most difficult game I ever played.
Was it Barbie Treasure Island?
You know what? I spent 180 hours playing Skyrim, okay? So...
And that was on easy, and all he could kill were the rats in the first basement. Balmora. You go to Balmora, pleasurely delights, and then you go to the basement, fight the rats, and you could barely beat those.
In my never-ending quest to find the lusty Argonian maid, I conquered Skyrim, all right? In 180 hours, I did all the guilds. I found those sweet Argonian maids.
Guess how long it took me to 100% Skyrim?
How long? You didn't
100 hours.
You can't
I did
100%
it in
Skyrim.
I did 100%.
No,
I got all the achievements.
Oh,
that's all that matters.
Doesn't count. That doesn't count. You know how
That's
many
all that matters.
You can wander around dungeons in that game for literally ever.
Nah, there's nothing to do after you do 100 hours like me and you beat the whole game and you make everybody else who beats it look like a wimp who spent over 100 hours. Okay, real talk though. Okay, that's your longest game you ever played. What's the hardest game you think you've ever beaten?
The hardest game I've ever beaten.
Yeah, the most difficult.
Ninja Gaiden 2.
Oh, actually, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Did you ever finish the original Ninja Gaiden?
No, I didn't. Because the first one I played was the one on
the
I know, the one on the 360 was the first one I played. That was Ninja Gaiden 2, I'm pretty sure.
Shame. We're going to have to take you out to the streets like that Game of Thrones episode everyone loves and yell shame at you, okay?
And throw feces.
Right when Game of Thrones got good, that's when they had the shame episode. Everyone's favorite episode. Ninja Gaiden 2 is good. Any other difficult games? So you finished Bloodborne, Dark Souls 2, Dark Souls 3, Sekiro. I mean, give us a real difficult one, huh?
None of those, man. I've played Sekiro and Dark Souls, but I have not finished them because I don't have time.
How far did you get in Sekiro?
You what?
How far did you get in Sekiro?
I got... I don't know.
This is a shame-based episode if you guys haven't figured this out. My goal is to shame him into beating Elden Ring by next episode.
I literally just played like the first zone in that game. There's whatever that first boss is, like that's where I stopped. It's hard, man.
I don't remember the first boss. It is a really difficult game. I had to give up on Genichiro. Genichiro is like one of the earlier. He's like past the boss. You got to. But he's still really difficult. I did the Madame Butterfly and the guy on the horse who I can never remember. But Genichiro is like the first. They call him like skill checks, and he worked my rear end. Okay, since I've become.
Sorry, what? It's funny because I go on YouTube and I watch them like do these boss fights and they breeze through them like they're nothing.
They do them on dance pads. I don't know if you saw the girl who beat the last boss in Shadow of the Erdtree on a dance pad. That boss is so hard. I had to change the way I played the game so I could beat him. Like it's ridiculous. I don't even know how she did it. But I've talked all about becoming the Erdtree themselves and all the other cool stuff I've done. What have you been playing, my lad?
Oh man, I haven't actually played anything new this week. I know, fake gamer.
Goodness.
No, I had relatives in town, so they've been at my house for the past week, so I haven't actually had time to switch on the old Xbox.
They wouldn't have wanted to co-op Moving Out 2 with you, the new Xbox Game Pass release. They love Moving Out and Moving Out 2.
Yeah. No, my cousin in her late 40s and her 4-year-old definitely would have loved that, I'm sure.
They love it. Oh, the 4-year-old would have loved Moving Out too. You could have actually learned about moving. It's very good. Okay, so then if you've been playing nothing, I've been playing some sweet Game Pass games. I played Neon White. Ever heard of it? Do you know what that one is?
I don't. Tell me about it.
Okay, Neon White is a speedrun game. So now, after I finish Shadow of the Erdtree, I've become a pro gamer who's doing no scopes.
You're so
every
good.
game.
You're so good, man.
So, well, thank you. I need the praises. Yes, I started playing it. It's kind of like a speedrun game. It came out maybe a year or two ago. I want to say 2 years ago. And the concept was this: you'd pick up these cards, and each card was a gun, and they'd have a certain amount of bullets. But every gun also had a secondary action. So, for example, the pistol, you could discard the card by pressing the left trigger, and it would let you jump extra high. So you'd be platforming and killing these like demons while like maneuvering around the worlds to get to the end point, right? And most of the levels take about 20 to 40 seconds to complete. So it's incredibly fun. I will say the story is everything I hate from like anime kitschy video games where it's like, my boobs are too big was literally a comment that one of the female characters says. If it doesn't make you more embarrassed to play video games, it is, yes, it's one of the most embarrassing games ever story-wise. But there's a nice X button that does fast forward on Xbox, probably Square on PlayStation, and the gameplay itself is really dope. The style is really cool, but again, the story, I'm not in for it. Something to do with you're in heaven, but you're a demon? I don't really know.
Sounds like a typical JRPG fare.
Yes, it's made by the guy who, I think his name's Ben Esposito. He made a Donut County.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah, I really like that game.
Yeah, he's really good at gameplay. Like, I don't enjoy the stories of any of his games. Like Donut County, I found it more annoying than anything when you had to, everybody's being sucked up into the donut. It was some like metaphor for capitalism. I don't know, but whatever. And then you're like on the phone and you're the raccoon and, you're the one who's causing all the problems, blah, blah, blah. The story was whatever. The game was a lot of fun, actually. The game was a blast. You'd make the donut bigger and swallow up more things, right? Everybody likes Katamari Damacy. So Ben Esposito is definitely a dev that I like to watch, and I like to play his games. But yeah, this has been a hot summer in terms of gaming. I don't know if you've looked, but on Game Pass, Tachia, the PlayStation exclusive from last year, just came to Xbox Game Pass, which it also came to like Switch and a bunch of other things. That's kind of like the Mario Odyssey-like platformer where you can like become a rock or become a bird or become a whatever and you solve some simple puzzles. Yeah, it's really neat. I bought it last year on PlayStation. I didn't get super far, but it's enjoyable. I also, because it came to Game Pass again recently, I started playing SteamWorld Dig 2 again. Did you ever play that game?
No, I remember you talking about it though.
It's so good. Yeah, I talked about it on the original Super BS back in 2017 or 2018. I can't remember when it launched.
Yeah.
It is a very fun Dig Dug / Metroidvania. You keep going deeper. You collect more minerals. Use that to upgrade stuff. You'll also find upgrades that let you traverse more. It's just an enjoyable loop. It's a really fun game. And now I want you to declare on this show, you swear on everyone in your family's lives that you will beat SteamWorld Dig 2 by the next episode. Do you swear it?
No, I no.
Okay,
that doesn't.
Guys, just so you know, he's
like
a fake gamer. He is not even swearing upon his family's lives that he'll beat a 30-hour game within 1 week. Okay, since you haven't been gaming hard, what have you been doing? You've been watching TV, you've been watching movies. What's been on the entertainment? I know you've been entertaining hard. What did you do?
No, man, I just started watching things again with my kids a couple days ago. We started watching the Alien
House of
movies.
Dragons.
What?
Your kids? You watched an Alien with your kids?
Yeah, man.
It was funny. I was setting up a joke when I said House of Dragons, and what you responded with was just as bad as my joke. I thought, I was like, oh, yeah, I'll say House of Dragons. That's really funny. No one watches that with their kids. You're like, yeah, just Alien and Friday the 13th and Nightmare Before Elm Street.
I looked
You're
at them, though. I was like,
scare these
kids, don't say anything you hear in this movie as Bill Paxton's screaming the F word.
Does it have a lot of F words? I can't remember Alien, the original, like at all.
No, we didn't watch Alien because Alien, a lot of people argue this, that say it's a classic. It is a classic, but it's boring. So I let them watch Aliens.
That's a lie.
And there's like 4 or 5 F words in it. Nothing crazy, no nudity or anything. So it's definitely like the most, I guess you could say, kid-friendly of all of them.
So you're saying the aliens are wearing jeans or jorts and jackets? I think there's some nudity in there.
No xeno nipples at all in this one.
If I don't see those aliens in clothes, then this is nudity, and you have been showing your children third kind nudity, okay, which shouldn't be allowed in our cinema. Okay, since we talked about it a little bit last week, and I finally finished the trailer, it took a while to watch that 3-minute trailer. Have you already committed to watching Gladiator 2 opening night in the theaters? Will you commit to that?
Only if we go together, man. And
yeah, sure. Come out here.
When they come to like pop our beach balls that we throw, you get up again like you did during Pirates, and you call the guy that works at the theater Mary Poppins because he's popping the beach balls with the scissors.
Didn't our friend also do that to somebody else's beach ball? Were you at that movie? Where our friend, I won't name him on this podcast, he shall not be named, but he was a popper, and it was like I felt so embarrassed because these people were just enjoying life, man.
Yeah, I think so, man. But I remember the guy that walked in, he was like shaped like a pear. And I remember I used to work with him at the AMC down in Marina Pacifica, but he came out and he grabbed the ball and he had a pair of sharp scissors. He like looked you directly in the eye and he shoved the scissors into the beach ball. And then you got up, you're all, boo, Mary Poppins. Like you were looking for metaphors pretty bad there, but that was a good one, by the way.
That was a very good pun. I was a king of puns in a young age. But yeah, I mean, anyone who destroys joy and fun like that deserves the worst fate. But he already got it. We call him Pear Boy to this day. Everybody knows him as Perry. They forgot whatever his real name was, and he had to change his name legally to Perry. Since you are the biggest Star Wars Acolyte fan that I know of, we have decided to make this episode not because of Star Wars Outlaw coming out in August, and we're not excited about that, but because of Star Wars Acolyte, your favorite show. We decided to talk about our top 5 favorite Star Wars games. We've got a list in front of us of all the Star Wars games that ever came out. This is not going to be an ordered list. I don't want to do a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm not going to give you that type of vindication, okay? This is going to be something where you're going to listen and you're going to have to feel how much we love it. And if you can't feel that, then that means we didn't love it enough. And that's mainly aimed at Jank, the despised one, as we will not forget his moniker. Okay, Jank, despised one. What is one of your top 5 favorite Star Wars video games in preparation for Star Wars Acolyte season finale and not Star Wars Outlaws?
What are we going in order here of like when they released or what?
It's whatever you want to give us. This is an unordered list. This is just when you think Star Wars and you think of games and you explain why this Star Wars game is the game of choice, I want to hear that love, okay? I want everyone to know love abounds. We still love Star Wars, okay?
Oh, do we?
Give me one. I guess we do. We love it. I mainly love all the new stuff. All the stuff that happened before 2020 I don't like at all. But 2020 stuff is good.
Okay, so here's the very first one that I ever played was Star Wars Rebel Assault 2.
Okay,
all right.
Okay.
And I remember
is that in a top 5? Is that like a top 5 game for you? Top 5 Star Wars?
No, I don't know.
Well,
I'm trying to remember how many Star Wars games I've actually played here. No,
okay,
I wouldn't say it's a top 5.
Then let me kick it off. So you have some time to check out this list so people aren't like, why did he put a game he doesn't even like on this list? My top 5, not even 5 with a bold. If we were truly doing a numbered list, this might be 1 or 2 because of all the memories. Star Wars Shadows of the Empire on Nintendo 64. This has been mentioned before on this podcast. You play as Kylo Ren or whatever his name is. Oh, no, his name is Dash Rendar.
Yeah.
Oh, dude. And you would get a jetpack at one point. You went on a train and fought IG-88, man. I mean, this game is like Game of Legend. You go on, what is the sand bike called in Star Wars?
Oh, shoot.
A sand
like
speeder?
No,
land speeder's the
it's like a swoosh bike or
one.
something like that. I can't remember.
Or the big car one. Yeah, swoosh bike. Sand speeder. I don't know what it's called. I think it's called sand speeder. But yeah, you got to do that. You got to no, that's a totally different Star Wars motorcycle. I'm sorry, people listening. This is not fun. I just can't remember what it is. Oh, it's just called speeder bike.
Oh, okay.
No wonder I was like trying to think.
That makes sense.
You get to do that. You get to bomb some type of giant space station in the game. Spoilers. You get to take down AT-ATs using the harpoon cable in a snow speeder. I mean, it's just a joy. It really is like a special game. And outside of the fact that it controls like, behind nowadays, and the fact that, it's difficult to play, and there's, it's an old game. It's really one of the best. I still don't know if there's another Star Wars game. Like, if I could get a remake of Star Wars Shadows of the Empire, I would take that over Star Wars Jedi the Third, whatever that game is, right? And I like that series quite a bit. So anyways, that's one
it's
of
funny
my 5.
because so that's actually my number 4 there. But it's funny because that's considered, what do they call it when they pushed out all the old Star Wars novels? It's like legacy material, they call it, or something like that.
Oh, okay, the canon or something, like legacy canon.
Yeah. So that's part of that. So I think they're only making games now that are part of the actual like Star Wars ongoing Star Wars mythology as it exists now. So I'm assuming, Outlaw, when it comes out, will have something to do with that.
You think there will be Dash Rendar in Outlaw?
No. But I'm saying like the Outlaws game, when it comes out, I think it's gonna be tied into the existing Star Wars canon. Empire Strikes Back, a remake would be cool, but they would have to, because I think it takes place right in between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, so they'd have to find some way to make it canon.
How great would it be if the previous materials for Star Wars Outlaws were all fake, and instead of whatever the person name, K Vess, you find out you're playing as Dash Rendar, and then it's like just literally Shadows of the Empire, and it's awesome, and everybody starts cheering, and they're like, hey, I don't even care about these other people, I just want to play Shadows of the Empire, now it's with new graphics.
What a great like summer of gaming like announcement that would be, right? Like if you had like a Star Wars background or whatever, you're like in a Imperial prison, there's an explosion, right? And all of a sudden you see these boots walking across the screen.
Yep.
Someone's tossing a grenade in the air, and then you hear someone talking, and then a droid goes, "What did you say, Dash?" And everyone's like, "Woo! Hell yeah! I love that guy, yeah."
Man, that would be the most fun, like, ever. I would absolutely love anything to do with Star Wars Shadows of the Empire coming back.
Yeah.
Okay, so I gave you one of my faves. Give me one.
All right,
Shoot me with something solid.
I got you one right here.
Okay. I love it.
Star Wars Episode 1 Racer. All right, this was
the podcast game on N64.
Yeah, the pod race game on N64.
Like,
I actually played this though before. Well, I played on N64 first, but so remember in the Long Beach Town Center, they used to have those like giant arcades. You remember that? And you get I forget what it's called, and they give you a card. It was back before like Dave and Buster's was a thing. I forget what they're called, but they used to have a
it wasn't Nickel, right? That was the one I remember.
No,
but
not Nickel. I don't remember what it's called, but they had a pod racing game in there, and you'd like get in the pod, and you can control the joysticks or whatever. And they had the big screen. So like I spent a lot of money playing that game when I was a kid. Every time we go there, I'd ask my mom if I can go in and play for a minute. But yeah, I know that was always one of my favorites. It's funny because I went back and played it again when it came out on the Switch. I think it was last year or the year before. And
I think it's like 3 or 4 years now.
3 or 4,
yeah.
The years are all blurring into one. But didn't hit the same as it did when I was a kid. And I think it's just because the gameplay functions have improved quite a bit since then. But I don't know. It was it
released in 2020, just to give you the actual date when it came out again. So
that's what
4
I meant,
years ago.
I don't know. It's a pretty novel game, in the Star Wars universe. It's just typical racing, and despite what the haters say, like I don't think Phantom Menace was terrible. So I loved I love the pod racing concept and going back and playing that game. So it's pretty cool.
I'm gonna actually do you one better. I don't even think Phantom Menace was terrible at all, because in gaming it brought one of my favorite, most memorable games that I played nonstop. It brought, let me see if I can find the name of it. It was called Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. Do you know this game?
Yeah, well, that was just the video game of the movie, right?
Yeah. Did you ever play it, though?
No, I don't think so. What console is that on? Oh, it's PlayStation, right? PlayStation 1?
Yep. Yeah, and it came out again on PlayStation 5. I actually was probably going to pick it up recently because I had so much fun as a kid, because it was one of the first games I remember where you had a lightsaber that could deflect bullets, right? Because that wasn't something that could happen very often. And it was kind of like a weird, not really, I can't say like a Zelda-like, but it was an old style game where you go through the world, but there was like save points littered throughout and you'd save at them. It wasn't an RPG, but it was just so much fun. I just remember like playing that game nonstop. I had the strategy guide for it. So it's still one of my favorite games ever. I guess they made a Star Wars Episode 3 game on PlayStation 2 that was supposed to be like this one, but by then the magic had died off. Okay, I'm Episode 1 Phantom Menace Game Boy for life. If you haven't played that yet, play it on PlayStation today. Hopefully it gets remade. Okay, so hit us with another one. We loved pod racers. We've been doing that nonstop. We're Anakin boys. We love what's the guy who's blue that he owes him? Boba. Right?
Oh,
Sebulba? No, Sebulba's the bad guy. No, Sebulba's the bad guy. Who's the guy who owns Anakin?
Watto.
Greedo.
Watto.
I thought it was Watto.
Watto. No, you're right.
Yeah,
you're
Watto's the flying guy. He's got like wings on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, Annie. Ha ha ha. He was like a creep. It
was
like so weird that they had such a creepy.
Yeah, and then they went back in Episode 3. He was like an old man, and his mom was got
dementia.
You know what? By Tusken Raiders, man.
No, she didn't. No one R'd her. Okay.
Yeah.
No one R-worded her. Okay, so Star
Wars
Episode 1.
It's
funny that we're doing like cancel. It's funny that we did a 99. We're like 99 boys when it comes to Star Wars. Give me your next one though.
All right, so I got Star Wars Jedi Power Battles. It was one of the first like co-op games that I think I played on the PlayStation 1. And so I'd sit there and me and my brother would play, and it was a weird the game style was weird because it would switch from like 3D to like a 3D type game to like a 2D platformer type of thing. And it was could never quite decide what it wanted to be, but like I remember being excited by, much like what you said with Phantom Menace, you're able to deflect to the lasers with the lightsabers.
Deflect the bullets and stuff with your lightsabers. Yeah, it's so funny because this came out, I think, a year or two after Episode 1 Phantom Menace, and I remember playing this game too. I think there were so few Star Wars games, and Star Wars was so interesting at that time. But what it looks like is it was a traditional, like, beat 'em up, like a brawler, like you'd find in, like, a Fighting Force or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But it was just with Star Wars. And if a game came out and had a licensed IP, it was like the coolest thing ever, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's just so funny how few of those games exist now compared to when we were kids, and that was the majority of games that came out were like trash licensed IP games.
Yeah.
I mean, when you look at this list of Star Wars games, like pre 2010s, the amount of games coming out that are Star Wars were insane. I mean, there's still a lot of Star Wars games being made nowadays, but back then, compared to like how many games were being made as a whole, it was just wild to see, like, hey, there's 6 Star Wars games or 8 Star Wars games coming out a year for like 96, 97, 98, 99, because they were so quick to churn out. But yeah, I remember Jedi Power Battles. I don't remember it being good, but I do remember it and like having fun as a kid.
Yeah. Well, it's also one of those games too where if your buddy went too far off the screen, like you got stuck, kind of like the old dungeon crawlers on the PS1 and PS2. It was a product of its time, and it went along the story of Episode 1, but you got to play as like Jedis instead of playing through the different, the various movie scenes. But, it was cool. You got to unlock more things as you played, and, eventually you always ran out of health and couldn't quite finish the game because they didn't let you save like when you played co-op.
Yeah.
So,
yep.
But I don't know. It was a good time, man. What's your next one?
My next one is, and this is an old fave for a lot of people, Star Wars Rogue Squadron. For me, it's the original. I know a lot of people loved Rogue Squadron 2 for the GameCube. I didn't get that one at launch, and I think I may have gotten 3 at some point in my life, but 1 is where it's at. That's the one I played the most, and, this is like an honorable mention. This isn't good enough to be on my list, but they had a Episode 1 themed version of Rogue Squadron called, like, Planet for Naboo or Fight for Naboo or something. I'm trying to find on this list, but it is what was it called? Not Starfighter, Battle for Naboo. And it was kind of the same game, but it wasn't as good as Rogue Squadron. But I loved Episode 1 so much as a kid that I was like, oh, I love this game. Rogue Squadron, however, though, was a very, very good what are they called? Like, not flight simulators, but like shooting games, right? Like third person cockpit flying like vehicular combat games
type thing.
Yeah, it's great. And honestly, the newer ones that have come out in the last few years are good, and you've noticed a lot of our games are really, really old that we're discussing, but a lot it's because we just got more IP games when we were a kid, and the newer ones, I don't buy everything Star Wars anymore. If it has a Star Wars license on, I'm like, I gotta get that. That's Star Wars. That's cool. It's like, no, is the game good? Because otherwise I'm not going to try it. Whereas like a lot of those games, you just like got them, right? And luckily a handful of them were very, very good, like Rogue Squadron. Okay, let me know what you're thinking about.
All right, so my next one here, I have, moving on up to the Xbox here, I have Star Wars Jedi Knight, Jedi Academy.
Oh, I remember this game. I don't think I ever owned it, but I do remember playing it once or twice. And maybe I had it at some point, but I just remember that game very well because I had played the original. I think it was the original one. It was called Dark Forces. It was an old PC game based off of Doom. But anyways, go ahead, talk about Jedi Knight 2, Jedi Academy, because I had third person with it too.
So I hated Star Wars games for a long time. I see it like Jedi Power Battles. Like I stopped playing Star Wars games after that for the longest time because it's not that I didn't want to play. I just like didn't like the idea of playing Star Wars when there were so many other games out there to play.
Oh, agreed. There was a lot of other stuff, and most of them were bad, like we discussed. But it was like an IP game, right? So you wanted the IP, so you'd play it anyways.
Yeah, exactly. So this was one I think my mom or aunt had gotten me for one of the two had gotten me for Christmas. I opened it up, played it. Ended up liking it a lot more than I thought I would. You're kind of a nameless, you're a faceless Jedi, student, I guess, and you're walking around these compounds and stuff, trying to figure out like what's going on with everybody. I don't remember exactly what the story is, but I remember it's got a lot of like puzzle solving, trying to figure out how to get from point A to point B. And
yeah.
I got to these things, and I was like, oh, hey, I can actually, like, I'm smart enough to do this, and I'm playing through this game with relative ease. And so that's the only reason I think I kept playing it. Had I died, multiple times, I'd probably been like, I'm done with this. But yeah, I think I got pretty. I think I finished it, but this was one I did devote quite a few hours to when I got it.
I got to correct you live and on air, okay? You're not a nameless person. You're Kyle Katarn. The fact that you'd forget about how
no, I said faceless, man. I'm sorry. Yeah, they never show like your face. They just
He's incredibly important, okay? He's Kyle Katarn. But I was right. This is actually like the 5th sequel. So they had Dark Forces and then Dark Forces 2. And then the future games were like Mysteries of the Sith and then Jedi Knight 2, Jedi Outcast. And then the game you're talking about is Star Wars Jedi. I love this one. Let me read this out. Star Wars : Jedi Knight : Jedi Academy.
Because wasn't there
a few more colons there?
There was a Jedi Academy 2, wasn't there? I think something followed that.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Jedi
Hopefully, I
Knight,
had some more colons in there.
Yeah.
I think we're like running through these lists, man. I don't even know if I can do a top 5 because I have a lot of other Star Wars games. I love it.
I got 2 more I'd like to talk about that. We're
okay. Maybe we'll go a little bit over 5. Okay. Maybe you guys stop counting and start letting us live our lives. Okay. Mahalo.
Stop holding us accountable.
I won't bring up both of these separately. I'll talk about them together. But one of my favorite games ever in the Star Wars series, and one of my favorite original Xbox games, was Star Wars Battlefront. Do you remember that, like that multiplayer shooter?
Yes, I do. Is that are you talking about like the one made by DICE or?
Yeah. Yes. No. The original one that came out in 2004. It was made by Pandemic, the company that made that game with all the explosives that I never played. And there were 3 guys on the cover, and it was like before Just Cause, and you could blow up everything. And it was like a very popular series. Anyways, Pandemic was a pretty popular company that I think went out of business. But my favorite part of Star Wars Battlefront was you got to play on all these different planets, and you could play like 2-player co-op. And it was essentially like you didn't have to play online, which I didn't have at the time. So you could play like offline with a friend and fight CPUs. And we would always play as like different classes and try to move through these like zones where you'd have to like attack all the guys and block bridges and stuff. And it was very much a game where I have a lot of memories of like, hey, we've got to do this thing, right?
Yeah.
Even though it's not important in the grand scheme. But yeah, I loved the Battlefront games. I liked Star Wars Battlefront 2. That's when they introduced the ability to have heroes. And like you could play as heroes if you did enough stuff. But it got really complicated. Star Wars Battlefront 2 had just so much going on. And then obviously, I don't think either of us are going to choose this game. But the Battlefront remakes, I did enjoy the original one that came out from EA, even though everybody hated it. And I only played a little bit of the sequel that everyone even hated more. It was hated so much that on an old Super BS, we talked about this, legislation was made against microtransactions.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yes.
So the first one coming out, though, that was the reason Mass Effect Andromeda was so bad, is because EA moved the Mass Effect team.
The remake. Yes, not the original Star Wars Battlefront from 2004. We're talking about Star Wars Battlefront like
remake. Yeah, they moved all the team that was working on Andromeda over to Star Wars, and it severely impacted the game.
Yeah. Yes, and sorry, Star Wars Battlefront was 2015. But yes, all of that stuff, if you remember, came from them using the Frostbite engine, the Battlefield game. Like, a lot of the issues that EA had were like, hey, forced Dragon Age Inquisition to use Frostbite. Oh, it's not made for this? Okay, it's going to be funky, right? Like, a lot of their games had issues being like, we want to use this proprietary engine we made. Now it saves us money on Unity, or not Unity, Unreal, and all the other engines that they would have had to use.
Yeah.
Okay, so hit me with another one, man. We're going to probably do a few more because this is... Mimi loves Star Wars, I'm realizing after this, specifically Jar Jar Binks.
All right, so next one I got Jedi Force Unleashed. Like, this was one that...
Oh, yeah, I remember that one.
The 360 era is one they had Starkiller, right? He was the main protag in this one. And I remember when it came out, everyone was talking about how great it was, and they kept telling me, like, hey, you got to play this game. Like, shut up, I don't play things that people recommend to me 100 times. Then finally I played it, and I was like, all right, it's pretty damn good.
Dude... May the 4th be with you on that one, okay? Because that one was pretty good. I think I've only played one level of it and its sequel, but I do remember it being like pretty fun to play. And that's why I'm taking this Downtown, though, we've talked a lot about third-person shooters, yuck, and third-person vehicular simulators, dumb.
Ugh.
I'm going to bring back a true classic. Let me see if I can find its name, because this was one that I played a lot as a kid, and I don't think it was very good, but I loved it. It was called Star Wars Empires at War. Now, I'm hoping this is the correct one. I think it is, because they remade, they had a better Star Wars strategy game that came out later called... Oh, I can't remember. They had two ones, right? And they had one that came out that was a 3D strategy game, and that's the one I played a lot that I believe was Star Wars Empires at War. And then they had a Star Wars, I can't find the name of it, but another strategy game that came out from the Age of Empire team. Or it was at least an Age of Empires like.
Empire at War is the one that starts out on Hoth, right? Like you're on the snow planet and you're building your little, you have to like build the energy generators and things like that.
I think so. Yeah, it was like it was 3D models, right? Though
Okay.
It was like a really because one of them is 3D models and one is like almost identical to Age of Empires.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, you know what? I think Empire at War is the one that is the Age of Empires like. I think I'm thinking of, and this is why it's so confusing, Galactic Battlegrounds. Okay, that's what I'm thinking of. Galactic Battlegrounds is the one that I played. Empire at War is the one that's supposed to be way better. Galactic Battlegrounds is the one that I got. So funny. Galactic Battlegrounds is actually the one by the Age of Empires team.
Okay.
Even though then I might even be thinking of a different one. That's the problem when we're doing this is like some of these games are so old. And but no, I do think I played Galactic Battlegrounds. I guess when I was young, I was too dumb to know that it was also the Age of Empires people. But Empire at War was the more popular recent one. Nonetheless, you can't go wrong with either of them. Strategy games are just a blast. And the fact that they have a strategy game where you can get all your little Star Wars units and you got all your stormtroopers and all your other guys going, there's just something fun to that. To me, It always made more sense than like Halo Wars, which was a good one. But Halo Wars never really made a ton of sense to me. It was like a fun game, but didn't make a lot of sense. Whereas like Star Wars kind of makes sense. A lot of the movies talk about giant galactic warfare, right?
Yeah.
So it's like you've got these huge vehicles that you're bringing out that you can make. So
yeah, they have the lore to justify it.
Yeah. Anyways, those are two different series. One I played and one I didn't. I will never tell you which one I played because I can't remember. But they were both cool, and the one I played was a lot of fun. What's something that you've been loving Star Wars wise?
Okay, so before I get to my last game, I got this one, Star Wars. Oh shoot, what was it? It was Republic Commando. Do you remember that one?
Oh, I do. That was an original Xbox title, and that was a biggie. That was one that like I remember because that was an exclusive for Xbox at the time, and you were like, wow, you can't get this anywhere else, and it looked so cool. There were a handful of Star Wars games that I think might have been exclusive to Xbox. One that I saw on this list that I'd never seen about like Obi-Wan or whatever. I remember the cover, never played it.
Yeah, that was an Obi-Wan game. Yeah.
Yeah, the one that you just talked about, Star Wars Commando, right?
Republic Commando. Yeah, it was a first-person shooter.
And it was cool.
You're basically, you're like a squad of, I guess, clone troopers. And I remember the cinematics for this game were sick. And that's kind of what got me wanting to play it. And I dug into it and played it. And man, like I absolutely loved every minute of this game. You know, it's about a 6 to 7 hour playthrough. So you could easily get through it and you're able to play, get your buddies on and you guys do split screen co-op on it. It was a pretty neat game.
Yeah, I always wanted to get it, but I just, at that time, I think when it came out, it was right around the time I played World of Warcraft, which was kind of when I spent like a year playing. Yeah, I spent like 1 year essentially where I stepped away from console gaming to play World of Warcraft. Like I played like a game here and there.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I'll never forget that day because it was right around when Doom 3 had come out for Xbox. And I had Doom 3 in my hand and I told my dad, I was like, hey, can we actually return this? And I got World of Warcraft instead. And that was around Republic Commando. All those other games came out. I still thought they all looked neat, but I had been like, hey, I'm going to be cool. I'm going to play games with friends. I'm a high schooler. I'm a high school boy. Okay. I play games with friends now. Okay, Daddy? You don't let me know this. I'm a daddy's boy. Here's one that we literally forgot, and I can't believe it because I didn't forget it. That's why. Because it's one of the best games ever. Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. An original Xbox title
BioWare,
released in
right?
like what?
Is that BioWare?
2004. Yes. One of the first BioWare console games. I don't remember any others. There might be another one. Knights of the Old Republic was 2003. I believe it was the first BioWare console game. Before that, they were like a PC company. They had been making Baldur's Gate, and I want to say they might have made Icewind Dale, which is also in the Baldur series. But yeah, as far as I could tell, this is the first console game for them. And it was just cool. I never finished it. I've always wanted to go back. It really does need the remake that was promised that is probably never going to happen. If you remember, there was a PlayStation State of Player showcase. Yeah, that was, 3 years ago? And then the rumor is it's not going to exist because they're owned by Embracer and all this other stuff.
No.
But it was cool. It was a really neat game. It introduced us to what was later the BioWare formula, right? They used it again, Jade Empire, then in Mass Effect, and that became their games, right?
Yeah, third-person narratives, yeah.
I mean, they had the dialogue wheel that was used in Mass Effect, right? That came from that era. And it was a really, really neat game. I liked it a lot, but it was really difficult, and there was no way to grind to make your character better. So I always struggled with that, like how difficult it was in terms of like, oh, I'm not a very, I wasn't Shadow of the Erd Tree. I wasn't the Erd Tree themselves at that time, okay? I was the lesser Erd Tree. I was still licking Mesmer's flames. Yeah. Now I beat Mesmer with his own flames.
With his own flames. Here's your flames on you.
Hit me with that. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, just to add on to your thing, that was Knights of the Old Republic came out at a weird time because that was when like the narrative games were really like getting not like the RPGs, but like the narrative, like third person narrative driven stories. The what?
Oh, no, you're talking about kind of more like this guy was supposed to be making a game. The David, what was his name? The guy we talked about a few weeks ago, he made Heavy Rain. He's actually working on another Star Wars game called Eclipse. His first game, Fahrenheit.
Dream, right?
Yeah, Quantic Dreams. And David, whatever his name is, Quantic Dreams. I'll look it up real quick.
Yeah, but
our favorite guy, David Cage.
David.
Yeah. Yes, but Fahrenheit, I want to say it's Fahrenheit something, Indigo Prophecy. No, it's called Indigo Prophecy, not Fahrenheit.
Okay.
And I think that the sequel was called Fahrenheit. But yeah, those games came out, and yeah, that was the beginning of the walking sim.
Yeah.
Right? The beginning of like the narrative third person. You're no longer just pointing and clicking. You're now moving around in the world and
interacting
clicking.
with it. Yeah. And it was interesting because like it was really you sat there playing, you're like, oh, this is something I've never experienced before. But it took a few years for those games to really like mesh themselves out and find their footing. And then, today we have quite a few of those games. But yeah, I mean, they were pioneers of their time, man.
Yeah, it's a very interesting thing. I actually am really curious about Eclipse. It looked the original trailer, which people are saying was a recruitment trailer, looked really good.
Was that that's oh no, sorry. Wasn't Amy, what's her name, was making...
Amy Hennig. I don't know if she was part of it. She was part of the other one that got canceled.
That was
the
one that was being made by Visceral Games, right? That was
yes, I think you're right. It was like an EA company, and they were supposed to be making a Star Wars game that was supposed to be really good from the people who played it. But that got canceled. Yeah, I don't know if Eclipse will ever come out, but if you ever get a chance to rewatch that opening trailer they had for, I want to say, a Sony State of Play or a showcase, it was really impressive, and a lot of people were saying they made it so impressive so that they could recruit people to work with them, right? Because they needed that type of stuff. But anyways, yeah, Knights of the Old Republic, great. The sequel, which is so funny that BioWare, what's the name? Obsidian. They became like this company that made sequel games for people, right? Like BioWare made the original Knights of the Old Republic, Obsidian made the sequel. Bethesda made Fallout 3, Obsidian made New Vegas, right?
Yeah.
Like there was some weird
they did
connection
Halo
with
Wars
them.
too. Obsidian did Halo Wars.
I don't think so. I believe Halo Wars, you're talking about the Halo strategy game. Halo Wars was done by, I want to say, one of the Microsoft teams, maybe Ensemble Studios, the ones who made, I think it's Ensemble Studios. They're ones who made, yes, Ensemble.
Are you sure?
Yes. Obsidian, their games were like, I think they might have done Icewind Dale. That's the reason why I wasn't super sure.
I don't know why I got those two mixed up. All right, never mind. Yeah. Continue.
Obsidian only does RPGs. That's kind of been their history, right? Grounded, I think, is the first game I can remember from them that wasn't an RPG. Like, you think about the first one I can think of that wasn't even a sequel for them was that game that came out from Sega where you played as a spy that looked really cool that I never got. Do you know which one I'm talking about? It was like a spy thriller, Alpha Protocol.
Oh,
it came out in like
yes,
the
I remember
Xbox
that.
360 era.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's delisted, so you can't even play it now if you wanted to. But yeah, they've done a ton of stuff. I guess they were working on an action game called Alien. I don't know if that ever happened. They did. They were supposed to make a game to compete with Elder Scrolls. With Oblivion, I mean. They had like Neverwinter Nights. They're such a strange studio. But anyways, they made Knights of the Old Republic 2. I've heard it's also great. It was one of the games that was never completed. But hit me with another one. We might do a couple more, but we'll see what you end with because that might be one of the ones I'm thinking of too.
This is actually my last one, and I was going to say Jedi Fallen Order was actually the game that is a game that got me back into Star Wars. Like that again. This was another one. Christmas present. Played it and ended up like just in the first 20 minutes of the game, just being blown away by the soundtrack, the voice acting, the cinematics, the gameplay. It was like everything was so fluid in that game that I sat down and I think I played it all the way through in probably a weekend.
Yeah, I will say I wanted this series to be brought up. That's why I was saying we might talk about another. So I'll also add that Jedi Survivor, which did you ever finish that one?
No, I didn't finish Survivor. I think I'm close to the end. I just never played the rest of it.
Jedi Survivor's a weird one. Like you, Fallen Order was a game I fell in love with. Mm-hmm. I didn't expect much, and then the reviews came out. I'm like, oh, I got to try this out. And yeah, it was janky at launch, but I had an Xbox One X, so it played pretty well. But it was really... I had a lot of issues with Survivor, mainly because I tried playing at launch and it ran like trash.
Yeah.
It was much better when I went back to it. There are parts of Survivor I think are way better than Fallen Order when it comes to traversal. I like the open world map, things like that. But Fallen Order was one of those things where it's like when you play Uncharted 2, not Uncharted 1, Uncharted 2, and you realize like, oh, this is the formula. This is what you wanted me to play, right? And it's really well made. Survivor is like Rise of the Tomb Raider to Shadow of the Tomb Raider, right? Where it's like, Rise of the Tomb Raider, the sequel of the original Tomb Raider, is so good, right? The original Tomb Raider remake, great. Rise of the Tomb Raider, even better. Shadow of the Tomb Raider, I don't think's as good. That similarly is how I feel about Jedi Survivor.
Yeah. I mean, Jedi Survivor, it was just picking up where Fallen Order left off, I don't know. There's just something about the freshness of Fallen Order when you played it. Like I said, the gameplay, everything was just so perfect in that game. And then you get back into Survivor and you're like, what are you offering me that's new here? And even like the more open world parts of the game were not too open. So I don't know. It just felt like they were redoing what they did the first time while trying to offer us a few treats along the way. And it just didn't feel as good as Fallen Order. Not to say that it wasn't a good game.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of great things about Survivor. They have even like a game inside of it, like a strategy game that's played in the movies.
Yeah.
That's pretty fun to play. Like I played a bit of that where you like set characters or like different types of units down based on like their point cost and they fight each other, right? And you can either save your points or spend them and you have to make it to the end, right? I played most of that. I didn't finish it because at the end it got pretty hard. But it was really a feeling of it being unfinished, right? There's like a gardening section that does nothing. There's like all this stuff, and you're like, did you intend to make this a way bigger game and then you ran out of budget? Or there's just something that feels slightly off about it, right? And you can tell it was rushed because of how poor it ran at launch. I mean, it's still, even when I played it like 9 months later, it still is one of the worst frame rates I've seen on modern consoles.
Yeah.
Like it's crazy. And that's me playing in performance mode on PS5, which I think is the one it runs better on. But yeah, I will say I like that series a lot. I'm down for the third one. To me, it is very much a Shadow of the Tomb Raider, right? Like Shadow of the Tomb Raider is good. I played quite a bit of it. I haven't finished it, but it's not as good as Rise of the Tomb Raider.
No.
Or as the original.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping whatever made Fallen Order stand out is what they get for the sequel. I'm hoping if it's make it smaller, make it slightly more linear, just have a littler hub, for the main place. Whatever they need to do to make it work, do that. Because whatever they were doing for this last one wasn't bad, but it definitely felt weak.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and with that, we got to talk about our last thing, which is Star Wars Outlaws. We jinxed you, okay? We told you it was about Acolyte. This is actually about Outlaws, which comes out August 30th. I'm fairly excited for it. I would be way more excited if it was a Shadows of the Empire remake, but nonetheless, we don't got no Dash Rendar, but we got K-Vess. Are you for sure going to pick this up, or are you going to be waiting on reviews?
No, I'll for sure pick it up. I mean, I am excited about it. I don't know like if it's going to be something I'm going to be like, oh, I'm going to sit here and play this from start to finish. But it looks cool, and I love the idea of being able to traverse different planets. You know, you're not locked into a certain story path. You get to kind of go where you want to go, and that seems pretty appealing. But I'm looking at it, and either this game is going to be amazing or it's going to be terrible. I don't think there's going to be any in between for this one.
I mean, I think there's a potential that it's a Valhalla, which is like a good game.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
it's like a good game, but it's not amazing, right? Like when I think of Valhalla, I don't think, wow, this is like a Tears of the Kingdom or anything like that. I think it has a good chance of being Valhalla. And that's not that's not a nick at Valhalla. It's just, excuse me. That's the Valhallan gods telling me to not talk bad about that game.
Shut up.
They're like, hey, you better love Valhalla and not say anything negative about it at all. But Valhalla it's an all right game, right? It's a new Assassin's Creed, and we've seen a lot of them. I have a feeling Outlaws might be the same. I want to get my hands on it, see how it controls, see what you do, see what the upgrades are. I'm just hoping it's better than a lot of the Ubisoft games I've played as of late. And honestly, that's my biggest concern, is it's a Ubisoft game. That's more than anything else it's like, hey, Ubisoft has created a very specific type of game for quite some time. Yeah. And are they going to at all try to break out of that mold, even just a little?
You know what's funny though is I was real excited about the Frontiers of Pandora game, and I played it, and it was fun, but it's not something I'm sitting there thinking like, wow, I'm gonna finish every inch of this game. You know, that was they made a great game, but it wasn't something that really made me want to play it all the way through, and that's what I'm afraid is going to happen with Outlaws.
Yeah, I have a feeling that could definitely be a potential, especially when they're like, hey, it takes 5 minutes to go across the planet in speeder bike. It's like, okay,
so why?
Do I care? Yeah, is that an important thing? Like, is it fun to go across? Every game, when they tell you how long it takes to traverse the map, I don't know if it's maybe I've gotten older and more jaded, but that doesn't interest me anymore. I have no oh, wait, it takes 20 minutes to cross the map.
Yeah.
I think it's because if I wanted those games, massively multiplayer online games exist. I could just play those.
Yeah,
they have that.
You just log into them, yeah.
Skyrim exists. I could go and walk across the map and do all that stuff, which that takes a long time. I think it takes more than 10 minutes to walk across the map in Skyrim. Yeah. You can ride a horse in Skyrim, right?
Yes, yeah, you can.
I think it takes still a lot of time to ride a horse across the map, because I remember it taking me a while to get to the different zones the first time.
Yeah.
So it's just, we've seen that. So I am worried about their big, marketing bullet points. But that being said, I don't know what else they tell people about, right? Like, it's hard to get people excited via words for video games. You need to let people play and show them why the game is fun.
Yeah.
You can't be like, hey, there's 5 people in it. Or there's 10 characters that you're going to love. It's like, okay.
And it's like, I mean, that's typical Ubisoft, though. Like, at Ubisoft, it's like, oh, they're making an open world game. And instantly you think of Odyssey and Valhalla, and you're like, oh, great. It's going to be one of those games that's bloated, and there's going to be side quests on there that there's no point even doing. And you're going to, it's going to take you a long, long time to finish the game or really even make any progress in it.
Yeah. I am hoping they don't go that route. We'll all find out here August 30th. We'll see if it joins the illustrious games we talked about, the top tier cream of the crop that we discussed.
Yeah.
Star Wars Episode 1 Phantom Menace on PlayStation 1 style games, which I don't know if other games. Jedi Power Battles version of games, which are the Kinect Star Wars game that we love so much.
That one, yeah.
But no, I mean, there are great Star Wars games. I never played the Super Nintendo Star Wars game. I've always heard good things. A lot of people love the Lego Star Wars games. I tried the newest one. It was neat. But yeah, it's funny to look back on a history of a series with probably 30, 40 games. I didn't count, but maybe even more, maybe closer to 50 games. Yeah. And seeing that, like, wow, there's like honestly 6 pretty great games in there, right? Yeah. There's like 6 games. Is this going to be the 7th or 8th? Like, is it going to be great, or are we going to get a stinker? Are we going to get a, open world Star Wars game? Are we going to get Jedi Survivor, which is more of what I'm worried about, right? Yeah. Like a game where it's like, I just don't feel compelled to play it.
Right, right. And it's like I said, it's Ubisoft, man, so it's hard to tell what's what.
Well, we will know everything. We already actually know everything. They provided early codes for us. We can't tell you about it because it's an NDA. Secrets. If you pay us on our Patreon $1 million, we will reveal all the sources to you. Yeah, we will reveal everything, okay? So just send $1 million a month, and after August 30th, we will tell you. So we have to send them $1 million a month before we get there to August 30th. So, okay, well, we look forward to seeing you on the Patreon, my boys, and may the Star Wars be with you, and live long and prosper. Right? That's the big Star Wars saying.
That's absolutely Star Wars. Han Solo said that.
Han Solos is what his name is, actually. You forgot. So, okay, my bros. Peace.